Hello and welcome to A Star to Steer Her By, Star Trek podcast, brought to you by Ovaltine. It's not chocolatey, it's garbage.
Son
Ovaltine.
of a bitch.
Ha! You beat me to it.
Hey, someone had to.
Just imagine if you sponsored us, your shitty advertisement could be right here.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody sponsors us anymore after that MyPillow incident. My name is Jake, and I'm joined by...
Chris?
Ames.
And Caitlin!
And this week we'll be talking about 2 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Deep Space Nine. First of which is going to be The Visitor. Second of which is going to be Hip-Hop
Anonymous.
Hippocrates. Hippocratic Oath.
Great.
Nailed it.
What
You
number are
can't
we on?
spell Hippocratic Oath without writing hippo. I didn't know that.
Aw.
I actually thought Hippocratic had 1 P, but I also realized that Ames was just running it out on the fly, so I'm not calling anybody out. I thought maybe it was 1 P, but I could be wrong.
It has 2 P's.
Does it really? I had no idea.
Just like a
Wow,
Klingon.
and you were a
Anyway,
classics major.
anyway,
guess it
so
does.
first of all,
Sorry, Ames.
What number are we on, Jake?
this is on episode 182.
Ah!
Wow.
Great.
182 times you've been disappointed.
Much, much more.
Yeah. So first off, we'll talk about The Visitor. In The Visitor, it opens with a strange old man, played by Tony Todd,
Yay!
also known as Kern, and the Candy Man. And he's taking drugs. And his doorbell rings, and this hot young thing walks in, and she's like, "Hey, are you Jake Sisko?" We learn that it is indeed old Jake Sisko, and that he's a famous writer, but he's only written 2 books. What the fuck, Jake? Get on it. He's
great books.
Yeah, great books. One of them was called Anselm. Is that right?
Anselm,
Yes.
yeah.
And the other one was a work of collected short stories. And she's like,
so,
listen,
not even really a book. I mean,
it's bound.
I know,
It's got
I'm
LED
really,
on the
I'm
cover.
really kidding. I'm really kidding.
So anyway, she's like, listen, I love your books. You're my favorite author. I just got to know why'd you stop? Because, I want to become an author and I don't want to be a complete failure like you.
Aw.
So any
Aw.
tips you could give me would really help. And he's like, well, since you're here, I might as well tell the story.
Wow, so not his voice.
After I came back to Earth, I moved to Brooklyn and adopted this accent. Hey,
I opened
and I
up a
became
diner.
Italian. Can I
Thing is,
interest
though,
you in a
it's like-
pizza?
Thing is, though, it's like he moved to Louisiana, and adopted that accent. Because he was definitely serving some
He did have a
twang.
bit of an accent, but whatever. So this is a flashback episode where old Jake Sisko tells the story about how his dad, also known as Benjamin Sisko, kinda died, but not really. We'll get into that. So anyway, what he says is, way back in the day when I was a teenager, I was 18, and we were on the ship. We were going to go watch a subspace bullshit with the wormhole, and some shit went down. Dude passed out in engineering, and my dad fixed it, but then right as he fixed it, he got zapped by the warp core and vaporized, and that's pretty rough. And we see all that. So then, obviously it's really sad. There's a big funeral, big memorial service. And then a few months go by and Sisko shows up, just appears in Jake's bedroom for a few minutes and then vanishes. And everyone's like, yeah, you crazy kid. So a couple more months go by. He appears again. And this time other people see him and they bring him to sickbay and they're like, yeah, you're Sisko, all right. What the fuck? And they figure out that he's trapped in subspace. So the subspace bullshit that the wormhole was doing, apparently when he got zapped by the warp core, it sucked him into subspace, and that's where he's trapped. Now what's interesting is time passes normally in regular space, but it doesn't pass for Sisko. So every time he appears, even though it's months and years later, he stays the same age. It's been no time for him, but it is time for Jake. So we see, as Jake throughout his life, he gets older and older. Eventually he has to leave the station because the Klingons took it over.
Jerks.
And he figures, well, all right, well, I saw my dad every couple of years. He would appear for a few seconds and disappear. But, he only appeared at the station because of the wormhole, so I guess it's over. I guess I'll become a writer. So he does that. He becomes a writer. He gets married. He's got the sexy Bajoran wife. They're living on Earth in Louisiana. Nice house. Real nice house, actually.
Yeah. Looks like it could make a great haunted house.
Yeah, good. And he thinks everything's going good. He's transformed into Tony Todd, and he's like 40-ish. His wife's like, let's have dinner or whatever. And as they're leaving the room, who should appear but Ben Sisko? What, Dad? What are you doing here? So it's very emotional.
What do you think of my new accent? Dad.
Hey, Dad, Daddy-o.
I'm Joe Pesci, played by Tony Todd.
So anywho, Sisko's like, tell me what happened. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your wife. That's my best Sisko. And he's like, Dad, well, we haven't had kids yet. And then, anyway, Sisko disappears again. And this reignites the obsession in Jake's mind, and he becomes completely, singularly focused on getting his dad back now. He realizes that, that it's him that it's tied to and not the station. So he gives up his writing. His wife leaves him, we find out, and eventually they try to recreate the conditions of the original thing, and they go to the wormhole. During the next subspace inversion, he's like 70, and everybody else is really old. Dax is there, and Julian, and everyone. Nogg's the captain now, and his face is melted partly for some reason.
That's how far in the age.
Yeah, I guess so.
You've seen Zach.
That's true. They just melt. Sisko, sure enough, appears, and they think they're going to be able to yank him back, but it doesn't work. He ends up disappearing anyway, and Jake's upset about it, and he's like, that was the last chance. Well, it turns out that wasn't the last chance. Meanwhile, as he's telling the story and the frame story, the girl is left now, and Jake's like, well, it's my last chance to save my dad. And he's a really old man now, and sure enough, Sisko appears one last time, and he's like, Jaco, hey, you wrote another book. Great. And Tony Todd's like, yeah, Dad, and read the dedication. To my father, who's about to watch me die. Wait, what does this mean?
Oh, no.
So sure enough, the drugs that he was doing at the beginning was poison. And because he's worked out that if he dies, Jake dies while he's with Sisko, mumbo jumbo, Sisko goes back to the moment of the accident, and they get their years back.
Very slow-acting poison.
Yeah, well, it was like a few hours, right? Anyway, it happens. He dies. We jump back to the point where Sisko got zapped. He jumps out of the way. Older Sisko evidently remembers all the events, but of course, young Jake does not. And, end of episode.
Yay.
This was such a good episode.
Yeah, it's like stunningly written. It's the kind of episode that you feel like isn't even necessarily like a Star Trek episode just because it's just so solid. Yeah. It's not about Star Trek things, really.
Well, they managed to work in a little bit of like completely unfollowable science to make it work out. But
good. I'm glad.
Yeah, there's
a
MacGuffin to start things off.
Yeah, but the thing that's really spotlighted and on display here is the father-son relationship between the Siskos, which is one of the most lovely things about the whole show.
I was looking at it and I was sort of wondering, I have so far been lucky enough to not be in this situation, but I kind of wonder if it's meant to be sort of allegorical for losing someone to dementia when they have those moments of lucidity, and that's sort of what's represented by the times Sisko reappears.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And obviously it's, got this science fiction angle where, Jake is getting older and older and this and that. But that, when you're with someone, from what I understand, it's like when they have these lucid moments for them, there's just these moments and then they're with their family, they recognize them for a bit. And, and of course, for the family, their life has been going on, but for the patient, it's really, it's a lot of time is spent just sort of in this haze, not knowing what's going on, who anyone is. And I was kind of wondering if, maybe that was on their minds when they were writing this.
I'm going to say no, but it is a very good point, because, that is really hard having, as someone who watched their grandmother taken by dementia, it is incredibly hard.
I didn't know, sorry.
Yeah.
That's what happened with my stepdad's dad, too.
Well, yeah,
It
it's
was
no
horrible.
fun. No, in fact, I happened to read that the writer, Michael Taylor, whom fans thought was secretly Michael Pillar and Jerry Taylor's joint pseudonym because the episode was so good, that they were like, it can't be some new guy that we've never heard of yet. No, it must be them. But in fact, it's Michael Taylor, who will go on to write some of the really good episodes of Voyager. His original thought was to follow Sisko and only have brief glimpses of Jake throughout. Before he realized, like, the actual interesting story is watching the character who's left behind.
Yeah,
which I think is the much, much more interesting way to do it, too.
Yeah, because, like, what would it have been? Cisco just, like...
hanging out in a haze.
Twiddling his thumbs in the White Room.
If it's subspace, does he get to see bits of Odo that's shunted to subspace every so often?
Ooh. Is that the first time we've seen subspace?
Yes.
Well, and that might not even be subspace specifically as some weird pocket dimension it created.
Yeah. It's funny
God, I
because
hate subspace.
when Jake and Sisko are briefly both in subspace and Jake asks, "Where are we?" I couldn't tell if Ben Sisko hadn't actually, like, noticed this place before.
I was under the impression he hadn't.
Yeah, because I know, like, time hasn't been changing for him, so why would he be in a room?
Yeah, I think it was somehow just the fact that they were both there made him cognizant of his surroundings in a way he hadn't been before.
I assumed it was, like, some space in between, you know, where it's like, because Jake hadn't completely gone into subspace either. He was just sort of in transition.
Yeah.
Just long enough to say, son, I'm really disappointed in you. Bye!
Go write a book, damn it.
Oh, yeah, no, this episode, like, I hate feeling things, and it made me feel things.
Yeah, I teared up twice. Once, watching poor Chirrut Laughlin, like, deal with the father's death, and then the end, which is stunning.
Yeah. And this is actually one I remember. Like, there's some I'm hazy on, there's some I'm like, maybe I never... This one I remember. And even knowing what was happening and what was gonna be the result, it was still had a very strong impact. Which I think that's a sign of a really well done kind of emotional episode, is when it works a second time. Because sometimes something can be real. The first time you're like, oh man, wow. But then when you kind of know it's coming, it can still be affecting, but not as much.
Yeah, Inner Light does that to me every single time because it's got such a beautiful ending kind of thing. And this one is very similar to Inner Light because now Sisko is left with these memories of watching old man Jake die in front of him, which is terribly, like, shocking.
Well, but in a way, it gives him an interesting perspective that, like, most parents won't have, right?
Yeah.
Because the natural order of things is that, unfortunately, you lose your parents and then you die of old age, not like you die of old age with your parents, because then your parents would be of very old age. So I don't know, I don't have anything else to say about it. I just think that, like, it's interesting, because that's not something you'd normally see.
I'm curious if we'll actually see the effects on Sisko in future episodes. I'm curious if he actually told Jake any of this.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know that he would, really.
Yeah, I do know that there is a novel where they happen to run into Corina, who is Jake's future wifeling thing from an alternate timeline. And Ben Sisko's like, that chick, I remember her. And Jake's like, why? No reason. You should go talk to her.
I've seen her OnlyFans page.
Jake's just motorboating a Dabo girl.
And that's the thing, is we don't even know. He may not have... what old Jake does might not even erase that timeline. He may have just created a new one.
Wild.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. That's what's kind of sad, is that poor Melanie there. She's... What happens to her?
That's what I mean. I mean, clearly the timeline is very different in this universe, so the events that brought her about may never have happened.
Does anyone know who Melanie is? Who the actress Melanie is.
I had meant to look her up, and I just did while Jake was doing the summary.
Oh,
you
son of a bitch.
You go.
All right.
Well, I don't know.
Caitlin, go.
No, I was saying I don't know.
Okay. Melanie is played by Rachel Robinson, the daughter of Andrew Robinson.
Oh, who is Garrick?
No nepotism involved, apparently. They saw a lot of people audition for this character, and they were like, no, her, she's great. Oh, she's Andy's daughter? Even better.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
awesome.
thought she was quite natural. Because it can be a little hard to do sort of young, wide-eyed, and enthusiastic and not come off as cloying, but I think she did a good job.
She did a great job. I think the one thing that I'm less of a fan of this episode, which I'm otherwise like a giant fan of this episode because it's so brilliantly written, is her role. Because she just walks in on a dark and stormy night, because they always do.
Yes.
Just to talk to her mentor. And it's like, guys, I'm not seeing a ton of motivation there. She just walks in, like she didn't like call or email beforehand. And what exactly does she want? She just wants to talk?
Well, so really what this is...
Did they actually already know each other? It was my impression that they didn't. Oh, okay. Okay.
But I think now knowing a little bit more, and especially knowing that she's Garrick's daughter, this is probably an Obsidian Order
on
plot.
My computer, damn it.
Because obviously, in the timeline here, the Klingons won whatever war they were having because they took over DS9 and et cetera, et cetera.
Never hear of the Dominion again.
So I'm assuming that they also basically wiped out the Cardassians. So Garrick had his daughter surgically altered to look human.
Okay.
They figured out the subspace thing and were like, listen, you got to get to the Sisko house. You got to kill Jake Sisko as soon as Ben Sisko appears. That way, the timeline will be fixed, and we'll.
And with Ben Sisko there, we'll definitely win against the Klingons.
Exactly. We need.
Actually,
Sisko.
I'm following this. I'm actually following this.
And then when she realized, wait a minute, I don't need to kill him. He's going to kill himself. Fuck it, I'm out of here.
I'm going to take his book with me, though.
I think she was probably still hiding out in the bushes with a rifle, but
just in case.
Make sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine even Jake was probably under the impression that, again, he wasn't so much erasing this reality as creating a splinter, because he did give her his book. So he's expecting her to continue to exist in some capacity.
Or he gave her his book because he knew it wasn't going to matter at all.
One or the other.
I guess I assumed that he just thought that because he was the tether, releasing his dad would just let him find peace. I don't think I necessarily thought he would know that it would make a time jump.
No, he does. Because he even tells Ben, jump out of the way of the.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Of the bolt.
Okay, never mind. I withdraw my statement. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Jake, though, hard worker, going back to college in his late 30s and going into science when he'd been a liberal arts guy his whole life.
I mean, when you live this long, and I think you have all the resources that you have in the Federation, you can, like, I think there's not a study, but an anecdote somewhere that, it takes you 7 years to become an expert in any field.
Yeah.
So in a lifetime, you could become an expert in, like, 5 different fields.
Yeah, I am not smart enough. Like, even if I had infinite resources, I could not wrap my head around, like, biology if I wanted.
I bet you could.
In the future, you definitely could, because I'm sure they've got, like...
you just take some brain pills. You'll be good.
Yeah. Do the...
Cortical stimulators.
Learn it in your dreams or something.
Yeah. Just fucking... Oh, man. I wonder if there's a black market for just, like, learning shit off of Vulcans. You just find a Vulcan who's an expert in a field you want to know and have him do a mind meld with you.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Like, even if it doesn't give you a permanent sort of expertise, maybe you have enough sort of basis that you remember that it makes learning it easier for yourself.
That's interesting.
What about you could do, like, mind meld sex?
Why?
Like in Demolition Man.
Exactly.
Or Sense8.
Never saw that
one.
I haven't either, but the one... Well, actually, no, I saw an episode, but I understand there's some weird orgy that they all take part in because of their psychic link, basically, but it's really just between two of them. I don't really know. I don't remember. Something about sex.
So there's, one scene that stood out to me in an episode of many standout scenes was with Kira and Jake in the pylon. And the really interesting way they kind of backlit it.
Yeah, the lighting in that scene is beautiful.
Yeah, it really accentuated her new costume, huh, Chris?
Wise ass.
Jake found the best segue.
It was really natural and subtle. We'll get to that in a minute. Because it was like, I don't know who did it, but it was like just backlit enough to give it this weird, almost ethereal quality, but you could still see enough of their faces that, like, their expressions came through well enough, and it was just... Everyone who, like, had to have a really strong moment in this episode came through. I was really impressed. Like, I never had anything against, is it Shirok? How do you pronounce his first name?
I think Shirok is...
I think it's Shirok.
I've
I've
only
been
ever seen it
following
written.
Jake's lead, but I should look it up.
It's pronounced Nana.
Yes.
But young Mr. Lofton there, I've never had anything against him, but I think there was some he's never had to be like this level of emotional before, and I was very impressed, because I was like, because again, he's never had to show that before, so who knows if he could have. And
He could definitely grow up to be Tony Todd, who is fucking amazing in this.
Yeah, and thank God that DS9's old age makeup is better than TNG's.
Well, thank God they didn't actually just cast Shirok as his older self, because that would have been a mistake.
Yeah, and I gotta say, even though the makeup is still pretty good, fucking old Julian still is
that
ridiculous.
Voice.
That
he did the voice again!
He did.
His old man Yoda voice. God damn it, Julian.
Like, he looks good, but he sounds ridiculous. They did a really good job with Jadzia's makeup, too.
Yeah.
It was really convincing, and Nog was melting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed we didn't get to see old Miles. It would have been interesting to see what they would have done there.
Oh,
They
I have a
wouldn't
note on
changed
that.
anything.
Miles
actually
definitely died.
Oh, yes. No, they actually had to cut a bunch of scenes that would have been in the future area because Cole Meany was off shooting a movie and all this bullshit.
Oh.
So they had to cut some of those scenes, and then they originally were going to film, or we're going to produce Hippocratic Oath first, and then The Visitor. But because he had to go off to shoot a film, they flip-flopped the production order of them so that they would, have him available because he's very central in Hippocratic Oath.
Yes.
Makes sense. But it also meant that Rene Aubergenois got pissed off about this because he was supposed to direct The Visitor, but he got shifted to directing Hippocratic Oath because even though the episodes flip-flopped, the directors didn't flip-flop.
They probably just book directors for time periods, right?
Yeah. It's an order thing, it sounds like. And he was all prepared. He was preparing like, whoa, to direct The Visitor. And they're like, nope, you're going to do this other one instead. Goodbye!
Well, as much as I am sad because I never like to think that Odo is upset, this episode was like so perfect that
It was.
I'm glad that it happened that way. Like, not that he wouldn't have done a great job. It's just, I don't know.
I feel
it's
like
hard to imagine it any other way. There would definitely be differences, and it's.
I feel like going from his previous experience of Ferengi Wacky Time episodes straight to this without a middle step might have been tricky.
Mm.
Yeah,
Who did direct this one?
David Livingston, who's one of their very common directors on the show.
Is that the same Livingston the fish is named after, or is that a different Livingston?
I don't know. I want to say a different one,
Okay.
but I might be wrong.
And yes, as Jake so subtly mentioned, Kira had her new uniform, which I hate so much.
Yeah, I mostly hate because I really would have to look at it pretty closely to notice much of the differences because I don't notice these things. But I really, really just hate the rationality for why they changed her uniform, which was to make her look more feminine and thus less antagonistic, which is fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, Kira's whole thing is she's
a Spitfire.
Yeah. Also, like, just from a purely aesthetic standpoint, like, the gross reasoning aside, like, I miss the fact that the sleeves, because on our original one, her sleeves and shoulder pads are, like, a darker red than the rest of the uniform. And it was a nice sort of offset.
Yeah, this
but
one's
now it's
all
just
the same. Yeah,
and
very samey.
And it's not a great shade of red without some sort of counterpoint.
Yeah. It would be one thing, because I know it's also, like, the current iteration is also more comfortable for Nana, which would be a fine reason in and of itself to change the uniform. But then to go and say, oh, we're doing this to, like, girl her up, and they put, like, she's going to be in heels from now on. It's like, that's so impractical for someone like Kira.
She runs a lot.
She skips and prances and plays.
Cool. Speaking of uniforms, did I don't know if this is for sure, but were the future Starfleet uniforms the same ones or similar to what we saw in All Good Things?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Or at least they're very similar.
Can I just say they done goofed here?
Why? Why?
Well, technically. So All Good Things was supposed to be roughly 20-25 years in the future of the end of TNG, right?
Is that how the time worked out?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, yeah, because it would be roughly what time it is now in Picard.
Right.
Yeah.
But in Sisko Land,
It's 50
in the
years.
it was 50 years. Plus, when we first see Nog, when Nog visits Jake at his house, he's wearing a TNG style uniform.
Yeah, I was very confused about
which
that.
should have been
about
about
that.
the same time as All Good Things, because he's like, oh yeah, I told you that 20 years ago.
I
So he
wonder-
should have been in. At the worst, he should have been. Well, obviously they haven't probably designed the Voyager / First Contact uniforms yet.
No, Voyager just has the DS9 uniforms.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's another iteration of the DS9 uniform,
Yeah,
Yes.
so they
but
wouldn't.
they
have-
wouldn't know that yet.
They
No.
wouldn't know that yet. So I excuse them that. But what I don't understand is why I feel like Nog should have been in the All Good Things uniform 20 years in the future, and then probably another 30 years after that, or whatever. Or actually, no, Jake says it's only 14 years.
Yeah, because he's like 30 something.
He was 37 when Sisko appeared in the house. And with
Asking
the
about
wife.
grandkids. I want them grandkids.
He was late 30s then, and then when he sees him again on the Defiant, he says, how long's it been? And it's been 14 years. So that means that he's only 50-something, 51, 52,
1 + 2 + 1.
which means that the subspace inversion only happened, 33 years after the last subspace inversion?
But they said it
But
happened
we were told it
every
should be 50 years. Is there a missing Sisko appearance?
I don't know.
Did they
Maybe?
cut like a whole Sisko appearing?
Maybe I'm
segment?
going to blame Cole Meany. Maybe that was one of the things they would have had in the Cole Meany scene, but because he was off doing a movie,
Which movie do we know?
I don't. I could check, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
No,
because if
fair.
that was
It's not
supposed
that
to only
important.
be 33 years after the first subspace inversion,
Yeah.
which is in present day, then I feel like Jadzia and Julian look way older than they should. They should only be in their 60s.
Yeah, some of the math doesn't
But they
quite
look
work
like
out.
they were in their 80s at least.
How do Trills age? Do we know?
Oh, that we don't know.
Well, we've seen Curzon, right? He was fucking old.
How old?
I think, well, because he knew Kor and Kodos in their heyday, so he's got to be at least 100.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, regardless of timeline, which is math, I kind of wonder if they just didn't have one of the DS9 uniforms in Aaron Eisenberg's size.
Yeah, but why did they have a TNG one? Was it
That
was it the
prob-
one
you know what
little
it probably
Picard
was? It
wore?
was probably it's probably Picard's from Rascals.
I did like that his head shield matched.
Yep.
Yeah,
I continue to appreciate.
but they made him a
Nog
uniform
more and more every time.
That's great.
they made him a uniform for All Good Things. So, I mean, an All Good Things style uniform for when he's the captain on the Defiant.
Yeah, it's true.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was probably they probably just had those uniforms lying around and said, "Fuck it, it's cheaper."
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, they fucked the timeline. It sounds like, but whatever. That's a.
Well, my big concern was the Jadzia Dax situation. I know this is obviously, I don't know what season 7 spoiler, but I know that Jadzia Dax doesn't make it to the end of the series because the internet exists and this show is old.
Well,
So obviously,
now that
I-
Sisko's back, it's obviously his fault.
Yeah, but
Could
here's the
be.
thing. I don't want to spoil much more, but the events that lead up to her death perhaps didn't happen in this timeline, right? Because things happen differently with Bajor, things happen differently with Cardassia,
And
and things
Klingons.
obviously happen differently with the Dominion. So all of those pretty big things.
oh no, totally. And when the episode ended and they went back, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really certain like how they were gonna. I mean, I knew they had to do something to tie it up because obviously there's 3 more seasons of this show, most of a 4th season as well, really, right? So like I knew, I was interested to see how they were gonna settle it up
Yeah.
because I was
Well,
like, I
we'll
know that at
see, I
least isn't
think.
right. Not that they would know that in the 4th season, but
Right. But also that, just how much is going to play out differently. Because, we don't know, obviously, a lot of specifics about the world, but we know that the Dominion obviously isn't as big a deal as we think it might become in our timeline.
Yeah.
So maybe without Sisko there, maybe they did blow up the wormhole. Who knows? Oh, no, they didn't, because we
No,
see it.
yeah,
They do the
it's-
subspace
yeah.
inversion. Yeah, I don't know. Like, why is the Dominion not done anything?
Yeah. It was interesting that Jake was saying, he was explaining that, like, Sisko's death, was seen as a sign that the Bajorans had to, like, do this and that. I was like, how much of that was fucking Kai Wynn? Just not having someone who was gonna stand there and tell her to get fucked.
Yeah, the Bajorans signing a mutual defense pact with the Cardassians is certainly an interesting development.
Yeah.
I like it.
Surprised, First Minister Shakar went for that.
Yeah, it's like, geez, is it? I guess it's a the devil you know situation.
I don't know. Shakar seemed. Wynn must have
killed
assassinated him
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
Because there's no way a former Bajoran resistance guy is going to go for a defensive pact with the fucking Cardis.
Yeah,
Jesus.
like, I think I'd rather have the Klingons.
Well, it sounds like they get both in the end.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. We've never really established exactly what it's like in the Klingon Empire. For all we know, after they've murdered most of your people and taken over, it could be perfectly reasonable to live under them.
Yeah.
Whereas living under the Cardassians sounds fucking horrible.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there's no human rights issues with the Klingons generally, just because, well, I don't know, I say this, but I don't think necessarily that the Federation would be as close with the Klingons as they are if there were as many human rights concerns. But now that I'm thinking about it, now the Federation doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's like, do you remember what's that episode with Riker there?
Yeah, this is true.
Or that episode where, like, oh, we're not allied with anyone in this planet with this terrorism issue, but we do help one side specifically, but we're not allied or involved.
Hmm.
But also, I imagine, like, just culturally, like, it feels like there's more Klingon culture,
Yeah.
whereas the Cardassian culture seems to be the state.
And like Klingon culture also seems more compatible with Bajoran culture, just from like a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder that we're also not seeing a ton of Cardassian culture because we don't have Cardassians in their culture as main characters.
Well,
Like, we've seen tons of Klingon cultures because we have Worf going and doing Klingon stuff. We don't have any Cardassians doing Cardassian stuff.
Well, and that's it. I've often complained about the lack of seeing sort of people outside of the warrior class, but we just hear so much, and we have Worf, the Catholic Klingon. But with the Cardassians, we do get little glimpses. We've learned about their court system and what a nightmare that is. We have had glimpses from like Garrick talking about like, what did he call them? Not mystery novels, but the like enigma stories.
Right.
Like they do sound like
know who did it.
Yeah, and the time Gull David Warner brought his daughter in to see Picard, like it's definitely a very state-focused, very rigid culture.
They're space Nazis is really what it is. They're brutally efficient.
Yeah.
Everything, it's just a fascist society is from everything we've seen. And like what we have seen of the Cardassian culture is, like you say, it's very state-focused.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Whereas I think the Klingon politics are fascinating, but people are more dedicated to their houses or their ideas of honor and sort of debt than the state per se.
I feel like a lot of it is also like there's a lot of Klingon religion that we see, like,
Yeah.
or like their equivalent of religion.
Yeah.
That comes into play a lot. Like we saw when Alexander went and did that Batleth reenactment battle thing.
Yeah.
That kind of. So there's a lot of like that kind of ritualistic stuff on Kronos, and I feel like, and I don't know if there's anything to prove this, but I feel like Cardassia doesn't have ritualistic stuff like that.
They are probably atheists.
But Bajor certainly does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the ritual that they were doing the time when Majel showed up and made everybody bitchy?
Horny.
Oh, yeah.
That was
the
Gratitude Festival.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, that too.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I do feel like Klingons and Bajorans would be way more compatible. Because I feel like, Cardassians are militaristic, but not warriors. I feel like Bajorans, while they don't necessarily have a warrior culture, would get along well with one.
Yeah.
They kind of do. I mean, from the, at least from their past with the sort of resistance fighting and stuff.
But yeah, that's more sort of a recent history forced them into this. Like, you don't get the impression that they're necessarily a quote-unquote warrior culture in the way the Klingons are, and it's not necessarily a huge part of their history. It feels like they were probably kind of chill artisans and scientists. You know, they had their little brass sail ship a few weeks ago. Like, before the Cardassians came along and blew them into the Stone Age, you could probably picture them as just being, like, really chilled out, like, artist, hippie, religious weirdos.
I wouldn't call the Bajorans chilled out ever.
Before...
They're pretty keyed up.
No, then, though, because we've seen the Storyteller Village where they have to yell at a cloud every little while.
Which they had to do because they were all too busy killing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgot about that.
They're dumb.
That's a big hole in that theory.
I think I forgot that was Bajor.
Yeah, no, totally Bajor.
But also, you have to imagine, though, that as soon as some Klingon found out that this planet Bajor had something called the Fire Caves, he was very fucking excited.
That's true.
Anyway, the last thing I wanted to mention about The Visitor was that it was nominated for a Hugo for Best Dramatic Presentation, but lost to Babylon 5.
Ooh.
I don't know a lot about Babylon 5. Is it any good?
Supposedly
Babylon
it
5
is.
people fucking love it, and they love to say how Deep Space Nine is a piece of shit ripoff.
A friend of ours that we all know, I don't know if he's a listener or not, but is a big fan and was always telling me to that I should watch
Stop being sheeple and expand your horizons.
I will say,
watch Babylon 5.
I do know at least one person who loves both and isn't one of those obnoxious, like he loves both. So, I mean, it probably is good, although I do know the one thing Babylon 5 has is they, I think, started right away with CG.
Yeah, it's
I remember
bad.
people saying that.
And it is
that was the thing that kind of ruined it for me. I could not get past how shitty the visuals were.
Yeah, and I know eventually...
And the acting's pretty weak, too, at least in the early episodes.
DS9 starts toying with it eventually, and it's terrible. But
it's a bad choice. Don't do that.
But
it's got Walter Koenig, right?
I was just going to say, our man Pavel is in it. I was literally, I was like waiting inch in with that information. Isn't he a bad guy, too?
He's like a recurring villain, I think.
That's amazing. Can you imagine Walter Koenig? Don't hurt yourself, Walter.
How long is it? Can we do a 10 forward?
No,
it's
like
5 or 6 seasons.
Oh.
It would be like when we finish Star Trek, maybe, if we still want to talk to each other.
Which will never fucking happen, because they're going to have like 3 or 4 shows happening concurrently now. Yeah. Like, we will never fucking run out of Star Trek.
Unless it really surprises me, I have no interest in doing fucking Lower Decks ever. I don't want to.
I don't either, but I feel like we have to, right?
We did TAS, so...
It can't be worse than TAS.
Oh, fuck. Don't say that out loud, dude.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
It hasn't even started yet. It could be way fucking worse. Eric's could join as a full-time staff member. We don't know.
Of all of the voices are done by the corpse of James Doohan.
God!
It's just gas escaping.
Jake, they cremated him, so...
Yeah, there's a bit of Doohan in space.
That's true.
And there's no sound in space, so...
No one will be able to hear us.
I wonder what he's doing
screaming
up there.
So I'm just checking. There are 5 seasons of Babylon 5.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
That's appropriate.
But I don't know. Maybe. Because it is one of those things that's always kind of been on my list. And it's like... It was so hard for me to get into it, so I think I would have to have
a reason, like a podcast.
reason to watch it. Just not saying that it's bad. It's just it was hard for me to get past the what I felt was really poor acting in the first few episodes that I tried to watch.
Well, I mean, look at the first season of TNG.
Yeah, no, but I mean that's like the level.
Look at Terry Farrell 4 seasons into Deep Space Nine.
Poor Terry Farrell.
You know what I think too is you were talking about the great performances that we got from folks. They were really smart to not give her any of that. They were just having her and Julian bicker,
she's just gonna
like
be
old times.
Oh yeah.
She's like, I'm sick of listening to you prattle on. Okay, good job, Terry. Nice work.
I kept getting the impression that they were like an old married couple. I'm like, did they hook up? I can't tell.
But she's like, no, but she's like, you're always talking about your kids. You dumb fucking kids.
Fucking science fairs.
I think they fucked at some point, but they are clearly not together, and he has found... Maybe he went back to that woman he almost didn't join Starfleet for.
I'm just assuming that
ballerina?
that he and O'Brien eventually hook up after after the
I don't
show's
know.
over.
After Hippocratic Oath, I don't think Julian and O'Brien are going to talk to each other ever again.
No,
Could be
they
a
love
little
each
hate
other.
fuck.
Next up, we have the Hippocratic Oath, which is a oath that doctors take that says not to kill anybody intentionally. But we all know that sometimes they do what they got to do. Where were we talking? Oh, Dr. McCoy. Yeah. In
Where are we going with this?
Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
Yeah, he killed Gorkon.
Oh,
on
well, he
purpose.
tried to save Gorkon.
That's what he says. General Chang there had other ideas. Anyway, yeah, so in Hippocratic Oath, Miles and Julian are out on a little field trip, and they're in their runabout, and they're talking about their Danube class runabout.
I noticed that.
Specify they gave the runabout a class, and
Beat me to it.
lo and behold, it's a river.
Just
Anyway,
call
they're
it
out-
River Class then.
Well, the class name's usually the name of the first of its
Oh, you're right.
type, so it would make sense that it's a river. Anyway, they're out and about. They detect something. Oh, they're talking about how much O'Brien
Miles hates
wishes.
Keiko.
He hates Keiko and wishes that she was a dude.
That was
And
weird.
It's a weird conversation.
Wishes she was Julian.
Yes, that's the one.
Which is really where my comment about them hooking up came from, because that was obviously where this is headed. But anyway, they're out and about, and they detect some kind of something or other, and they're like, "Ooh, maybe it's a ship in distress. We should go check it out." They get to this planet, and then something shoots them down. They land, they get out of the ship, and they're looking around, and who should show up but a shitload of Jem'Hadar. Wah, wah. Back on DS9, by the way, Worf sticking his nose and shit he shouldn't be. He's trying to do like a police investigation, stepping on Odo's toes.
Squishy,
I wonder if
squishy
Odo
toes.
actually makes toes
I
inside
was
his boots.
just gonna ask that. Does he have toes or does he just
I don't
have
know. He
boots?
probably just has boot.
Yeah,
I
he
wouldn't
probably
say
didn't even have
certainly not.
he doesn't even have a foot inside
I know.
it. He's
Like,
just
why
solid
would you bother?
gut.
But that's a topic for another day. Anyway, Worf is there, and he just can't stop being a cop. So he's trying to get after the Ferengi bartender, whose name he refuses to learn.
Yeah,
And
Racist? Yes.
definitely.
yeah, man. And Odo's like,
He is.
So that's kind of the B plot. I'm not going to get too much into that. In fact, I'm just going to sum it up right now. Fuck
Whoa.
it. He keeps doing it. Sisko's like, Worf, just let Odo do his job. He's good at his job. Well, it turns out that Worf couldn't do that. He apprehends Quark and some ne'er-do-well in a doing a business illegal business transaction. He tries to arrest him. Then it turns out that it was a setup that Odo was working with Quark to entrap this guy so that he could infiltrate some smuggling ring, and
As a bag.
as a bag. And Worf ends up looking like kind of a dick. And yeah, that's it. Anyway, back in the A plot, what happens? Oh yeah, so they're captured by the Jem'Hadar, and turns out that the Jem'Hadar leader Garignac is like, "You're a doctor, eh? Well, I need you to do something for me. I need you to cure my men of their addiction to Ketracel-white, which is the drug that the Jem'Hadar use or are required to take before they die." And Julian's like, "No, I tried this already with some kid and it didn't work, so no can do." And he's like, "But it works on me!"
Ah.
And he finds out that, yeah, Garignac's kind of special. He apparently does not have the addiction to Ketracel-white. And Julian's going to try to figure it out. So, like, he actually tries to solve this problem. And Grignac's convinced that it's got something to do with the planet that they're on, because he'd crashed there years before without the drug, and he didn't die.
Was it the Baku planet? I bet it was the Baku planet.
Yeah, man. They should just go there, fucking Picard, jackass. Spoiling it for everybody. So his honey can stay safe. Anyway, so
What's O'Brien's reaction to all this?
O'Brien's like, "Fuck these guys. We're gonna stage an elaborate escape. I've rigged together a fucking phasery thing, and we're gonna shoot one of them, steal his gun, and then escape." And Julian's like, "All right, well, that didn't work." So, O'Brien keeps trying to escape. Julian actually tries to help. And then in the end, it seems like all is lost because O'Brien has attacked one of them and actually managed to escape himself, but he goes back for Julian. They get captured by Garignac, who's like, yeah, I should kill you, but I won't because because I'm not addicted to this drug. Evidently, my aggression isn't as bad or something.
He's wearing the Kira uniform, so he's less aggressive.
There you go. So he ends up letting them escape, and he even goes a step further and kills his second in command for not really a reason, just to save Julian and O'Brien, which seems like why even bother letting them escape? Anyway, whatever. Because his men would have eventually, when they were starved of the drug, they would have turned on him either way. So I guess he's compassionate towards Julian and O'Brien.
He loves
for
Julian.
reasons. Anyway, didn't make a ton of sense why, but he did. Anyway, they leave. Oh, but O'Brien had to violate Julian's order. Julian tried to pull rank and found out he's a giant puss and wasn't able to enforce his orders. And O'Brien basically just said, fuck you. And Julian's also, too much of a wussy to bring O'Brien up on any kind of charges. So O'Brien's just going to get away with blatant insubordination.
Sounds like him.
And
racism.
Racism. And to top it all off, at the end, they even hint that that Julian's not even going to be mad at him for very long. Because he's like, we can play darts in a couple of days, after I've gotten over your betrayal. So, yeah. There we go. Hippocratic Oath. Oath. All right, so, yeah.
Yeah, very, very disappointed in the chief here.
Oh, yeah, he's awful. He's just an asshole this whole fucking episode.
Yeah.
Julian is actually very likable this episode.
Which is unusual for him. It's
I know.
not really unusual for O'Brien to be like an unrepentant racist, though, so I wasn't totally surprised.
Well, you think he would start to learn, because he was starting to learn with the Cardassians back in the TNG days.
At the same time, to give him the benefit of the doubt, he has been captured by the enemy.
He's been captured by the enemy before.
They're probably going to kill him either way if he doesn't escape.
Yeah, but, just the jumping to conclusions that if Julian frees them, they'll just turn into, marauding pirates. I mean, there's no proof they'll all go the same way as the leader, but there's no proof they're going to become, worse either.
That's true.
Yeah, and I know Julian looks at this also from the point of view of the Federation, saying, "Oh, if we do free some of them of the drug that keeps them obedient to the founders and to the Vorta." Have we said the word Vorta yet? I forget.
I feel like this is the first time that I've heard the term Vorta.
Okay.
Yeah, I
The Vorta
genuinely don't remember.
Are those ribbed-eared people
Yes.
whom we've met a couple of now.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's clear in this episode who they are, but we'll see a lot more of them.
I honestly thought it was the proper name for the founders.
Ah.
I was actually really confused, so I'm glad that you clarified that.
Yeah, that does make a little bit of sense, because they do claim that they've never seen the founders before, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
That they never have to see changeling folks, whilst they still do know all about them.
They might, they just don't know it. I liked the line that they had about, it sounds similar to how other cultures have gods, but our gods aren't waiting for us after death, or something.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
That was a really good line.
I wish I'd written it down, but I really thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Our gods are getting us addicted to drugs.
They know theirs exist, but it's the reverse of most sort of religions, where it's like, hey, if you do all these things, maybe there's an eternal reward afterwards. Whereas this is your gods exist, and they want you to die for them, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, we won't give you the drug that they made you dependent on, so you'll just die anyway.
Yeah.
In horrible, horrible, agonizing pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of does make sense that Garanagar is...
It's literally pronounced just like it's spelled.
But I don't know how it's spelled either.
Oh, it's in the chat. I've been looking at it this whole time, which is why I've been like, why is Jake mispronouncing it so much?
Because Jake likes to make up words.
No, I mean, I know that.
Yeah.
It is kind of a bad name, though.
Why?
Right, so anyway, Goran Agar, it kind of does make sense, though, that he's a little softer than the other ones, because if the other ones have basically, if part of the thing that keeps the Jem'Hadar in line and following orders is the fact that they're dependent on the drug, that he is not dependent on the drug takes away that need to be,
so
a soldier.
Brutal. Yeah, he's the only one who thinks for himself, basically.
Yeah.
The other ones only think of, I need to be on the drug.
Yeah, and if it's been 4 years since he's needed the drug. So I'm guessing the missing piece here is, he crash landed on that planet. He was without the drug for a period of time, found out that he didn't actually need it, and then was rescued, evidently, and was put back in charge of a different troop.
Yeah.
And continued not taking the drug, evidently.
Well, and didn't Julian say that it appeared that his body was producing it, but he couldn't figure out how?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost
That's interesting. So, go ahead, Chris.
It's kind of surprising they didn't kill him when they found him.
That's true.
Like, you think they'd have been like, oh, this is a weird aberration, get rid of it.
Yeah, this looks like evolution.
It.
He has to go. We don't want that.
Maybe he, I don't know, because they would have known, or I don't know, maybe not though, right? Maybe he just told them that he had been taking the drug.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe he was faking the shakes when they showed up.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, all we do know is that he has told his group there, like, I'm going to get you all off the drug. I assume he's told them that.
Yeah,
they know why they're
there.
Because
at the beginning, they were all in withdrawals. So clearly he thought that the way to do it was just to not give it to them on this particular planet. To,
wean them off. He said he had enough for 3 days that he made last, 8 days or something?
Yeah.
By stretching it out.
So, yeah, maybe he thinks there is some way to get off of it being on this planet.
So, assumably, the rest of the people in his rogue team here also want to be off of it and also want to think for themselves, except for maybe his second in command, Arak Taral, who just seems like an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, they all definitely want to be off of it, but I feel like if any of them would, in fact, go on to maraud as the chief fears, it would probably be the second. The rest of them we really don't know enough. I mean, I guess we did have that Jem'Hadar kid who, as they pointed out, was just just naturally warlike and aggressive. And you kind of wonder, is it whatever aberration that causes the leader there to not need the white also maybe makes him naturally less likely to,
You're talking about the kid from the Abandoned?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, I couldn't think of the episode title. Because they do briefly, they talk about him. That's why they bring up Odo and the Founders. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like they want it to be sort of it's almost the DS9 take on the Hugh question.
Yeah,
that's what it
true.
reminded me of. A lot of Hugh.
But I feel like, whereas that is maybe a little more you could kind of come down on either side. I feel like with this one, it's a little more naturally just I'm with Julian here.
Yeah, I mean, I was already on Goran Agar's side because I know who the actor who plays him was Scott McDonald, who had previously played Tosk.
No shit.
Whom we all love.
When they showed up, I actually thought because you sort of see them in darkness at first. I actually wondered if it was a bunch of Tosks, and I was like, "How is that possible? What is happening?"
No, he's great. He's also great at being this monster thing. So
yeah.
And you talked about how Tosk was kind of a proto Jem'Hadar.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is.
In fact, I think you said that, Jake, and I now am wondering if it's because you remembered that he would be in this episode.
No, I actually did. I didn't know. I didn't even know until Ames just said it. I didn't know.
He's under so much makeup that it's hard to tell. But when you know, you're like, yeah, you're doing all the great under lots of makeup acting that he's good at.
Yeah,
you would think
that's tricky. So finding someone who can act through makeup is especially for a show like Star Trek. You keep them in the Rolodex.
Mm.
I was going to say that you would think that O'Brien would be totally down with
right?
Goran Agar knowing that it's the same guy.
Yeah, what's interesting is he has very expressive eyes, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what helps.
He's kind of got a little bit of that Robert O'Reilly thing going.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if it was in a Gowron way.
It's interesting, though, because, of course, it begs, it does show off sort of how both these men sort of entered Starfleet, right? Julian, clearly, he went through the academy, he went through the medical school component and all this, and he went through, he's relatively young. He's only recently graduated. He's only been there for, a period of peace. Whereas the chief enrolled during wartime. And so, you kind of, it's
Well, their paths were totally different too, right?
Yeah.
'Cause, like, Miles is like an enlisted man versus, going through the medical school and
and that, the Cardassian War definitely fucked some people's heads up. I mean, just look at Captain Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, Starfleet is all about preaching their things about, diplomacy and tolerance and this, that, and the other thing, but they're always going to have this little cache of angry soldier boys ready for when the shit hits the fan. But, you think you would want, to look like you need to be ready to defend yourself, certainly, in a universe where not everyone's necessarily going to want to talk, but you still think you'd want your soldiers to be a bit more compassionate, but they don't seem to be trying to teach them that.
Well, I also see that's the thing. I think you in this episode, and I think that makes this compelling is that you have two extremes. You have, Miles, who is, as you say, he's kind of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy.
Yeah, and very stubborn about being that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then you have Julian, who has this fucking savior complex, and who just like with what was her fucking name? The wheelchair lady? Melora, where like he's just convinced that he can save people and and that he's got no limits.
See, that one to me is different because I feel like it's almost like at some point he took like a follow-up course on ethics, because what he did with Melora was like really kind of fucked up in my opinion.
Yeah, he wanted to screw her.
Well, that too, but it wasn't just that. Like, I feel like it was like he wanted to screw her, and then he also decided that he was going to make the decisions about how her life should be, and was going to experiment on her and all this stuff. I feel like in this case, it's like, I don't know if we've talked about it on this show before, but the idea that like science without the humanities means you have a mad scientist that has no moral or ethical issues, like that kind of Jurassic Park thing of you were too busy asking if you could do it, you never stopped to think if you should. And I think Julian has made a switch from like previously asking can I do it to should I do it, and I think it's actually an interesting development for the character.
Yeah. That's a good
well, I
way
mean,
to
he's
put
definitely got a lot more depth than he did.
Well, I think it makes sense in a way that this could be his arc, because like he is the youngest doctor we've had, and presumably if you become a physician, especially in the world of the Federation, what's the word? It's a post-scarcity society, So like there isn't necessarily that appeal of, not that this is why all people do it, but some people you get into medicine, it's like, ooh, I'm going to be a surgeon or something and make the big bucks working on the heart or the brain, or like if you're going into medicine, it is strictly for love of the science or for saving people. So I'm sure to an extent any doctor is going to have a savior complex, but years of training and work and losing people and this and that eventually like tempers it so you're a little less like gung-ho and obnoxious. Whereas this guy, Julian, as we know, is still relatively new, so he's still got that sort of youthful exuberance for I can save everyone.
Oh yeah, it's
and
that
it makes
frontier
sense.
Idealistic doctor kind of guy.
Yeah, so to see those sort of edges smoothed out, the sort of, like you said, Caitlin, that's a really good way to put it, being like can I versus should I sort of thing. He's learning.
Well, and we sort of saw this with Bareil too, right? Like,
yeah,
he definitely, in my opinion, pushed maybe a little further than he should have, but he also then said, I know when to call it quits. We probably are past that, but I'm not going to do anything else.
Well, I think he even was like, really didn't want to go on as much as he did, but he had Bareil saying do it, and it's like, when the patient says do it, it's like, technically, I think as a physician you could override them, but...
Well, yeah, I wonder where that limit is, like that Hippocratic Oath of between, do no harm and the patient wants it done.
Well, and I've honestly heard that some people will have limbs amputated for, like, no reason. What? And assuming that that's correct, I don't know
fun
if it's...
or what?
I don't know. I've just heard... I will have to, like... I hope this is actually legit and not just some shit that I saw once, because I'm trying to remember, like, where I heard about it or where I would have even, like, seen something like this.
It's got to be some fetishistic thing.
Yeah, it must
actually-
be, right? Like, that's what I'm
Why
thinking,
else?
too.
There
I've
was
heard
a
of people with like castration fetishes that like get their balls chopped off.
There was actually a
Ugh.
non-sexual case some years ago. I don't remember the details exactly, but there was a guy who, like, he knew someone who was in an accident and lost their arm that way, or part of their arm, and got a prosthetic. And he was like, shit, that prosthetic's better than a real arm. And found a doctor. He had to go somewhere sketchy as fuck. Who, like, was like, yeah, sure, I'll take that off for you.
I don't see. I mean, I
Our
don't know.
prosthetics are not that good yet. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah,
I also
to be
can't
like,
imagine insurance is covering that, so he
Oh,
must
no,
be
I'm sure
like
they
a fucking
didn't.
rich eccentric as well.
But yeah,
Like,
so
like,
there,
I
there
There's a
has,
imagine-
difference between shaving your head to support your friend who's going through chemo and being like, I'm gonna lop this fucking thing off. What do I need that for?
But I
Yeah,
bet what
and-
you could do, like, if you put a really tight tourniquet on your arm, you could cut off the blood flow and if you did it for long enough, and if you could stand the pain, you could probably make your tissue in your arm die,
Yeah,
and then it would have to be
necrofy.
removed.
But I
necrotized.
also
This has
think
gotten to a horrible place.
Yes,
I
it has.
I also
I'm just trying to say there has been at least one case, and it sparked a huge ethical debate, and I don't really know what came of it.
Yeah, but I would say, like, yeah, I know prosthetics are now very impressive, and you can do a lot of things with them that you couldn't do, but
They're still
You
not
can't-
better than the real thing.
Guys,
they can't
imagine-
have feeling. That's terrible. I wouldn't want that. I mean,
No.
if I had to lose an arm, so be it. But I don't know if I'm going out of my way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just
I mean,
imagining if this guy used to really like to play that game with the knife, where like you're trying
God.
to hit your fingers.
All right.
It's like,
mean-
I'll never fuck that up and feel it again.
And
I'm
that's
going to
the
bring
thing.
this back. I'm going to bring this back because this is getting
Right,
disturbing.
right. Yes, sorry.
The thing I was going to mention, like, so Bashir, in his, idealistic, I can save the world kind of way. The thing is, like, saving these Jem'Hadar from their addiction is also incredibly advantageous to the Federation. So there's also kind of
Yeah.
a dual side. Like, not only is he, Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. It's also, if I do this, we could, win the war.
Well, yeah, because if you could make like a treatment, then especially if you could find a way to deliver it to the Jem'Hadar, and if they're no longer dependent on the founders for their drugs, they might mutiny.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Especially
that's-
because they, at least from what we get from Garanagar, that they're like ostensibly enslaved, right? Like you would feel like
Yeah.
if they had the option. But that's what I'm surprised that O'Brien didn't understand. Like,
O'Brien's not very bright.
Well, I think, again, O'Brien is thinking mostly, because he even brings up, again, the kid from the Abandoned, where it was like, that kid was programmed to want to kill. And
Yeah.
O'Brien doubts that programming can be broken. I think he thinks Garanagar, not just his addiction or lack of addiction is an aberration, but probably his temperament even is possibly signs that everything about whatever went into making him was wrong. And, whereas Julian is willing to say, I think they could all become a nice person if we got rid of the addiction. O'Brien's thought is, no, I think they're all programmed to kill, and Garanagar's a weird exception.
well, he also
Yeah.
like wants to like save his friend because
That too,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, like he sees where it's going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think that I think before we see Garanagar, Jesus, now I can't say it right. At the end, we see that Garanagar, like, has this mercy moment and lets them go.
Yeah.
But prior to that, like, there's no real reason to assume that O'Brien's not totally correct, that they're just gonna fucking kill him anyway.
Well, he saved that
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
that had the busted knee.
Well,
Yeah, that was a big moment in the episode where Julian sees himself not just as a prisoner being forced to, study medicine of this thing, but seeing his host as worthy of saving.
Yeah.
but I think that's right there. That little scene with the broken leg thing was important because it does show the difference between Garanagar and the others.
yeah.
In that one of the traits of the Jem'Hadar that we really see in this episode, and I think we'll continue to see, is that they are communal. There is no sense of self. There's no individuality really. not in the sense of like the Borg where they have a singular mind, but where in the sense that they don't look at themselves as individuals, as people. They look at themselves kind of like Tosk as commodities.
Yeah, like the guy as he's, got his knee busted up, a very easily fixable thing, says, nope, kill me because then it would be more Ketracel for the rest of you if I die because it's not worth saving me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, you can't imagine. I mean, I guess in war, maybe you would see people, sacrificing themselves for the good of their unit. But
yeah,
that just seems like how they act. Like, it's like, hey, I stubbed my toe. Guess I'll die.
And the other thing too is like we don't necessarily know how quickly, if they all could have a personality shift, we don't know how quickly it would happen. Because of course, Garanagar has been not actually needing Ketracel-white for several years now, and we don't know exactly, how long it took him to become sort of the philosopher Jem'Hadar.
Yeah, and some of it will also be now that they have kind of a leader figure who's been through this, who can like guide you through the process, who can like nurture the independence in you, where he didn't have that. He just figured it out on his own. Like, oh fuck, I don't need this. The founders are assholes. Oh.
Yeah, and like I think that's sort of that's sort of one of the flaws of Julian's perspective. Again, I am still on his side, but like I think he's under the impression it'll be like flipping a switch, and it's like I don't think it will be.
No.
I think even once you get them off the white, they're gonna need time. They have literal genetic programming and years of indoctrination that they're gonna have to get over, and we don't, because again, Garanagar doesn't say how long it took him to make that shift. I don't think it was probably as simple as, oh, I don't need the white. My whole perspective has changed. It was probably, I don't need it, and he had time to kind of sit and stew on it.
The other
These people will have the support of the rest of them, though, which will be different too. Though is my
yeah, that's true. That's true. But even so, it you wouldn't necessarily, you could still have one or two go rogue and be like, yeah, we're cured. Now let's kill that doctor guy.
Well, I was thinking the other problem is that if they find a cure for the addiction, then that just might mean that they're able to more effectively be out and about fucking shit up longer too. Like, if you don't need to go back home to get more drug, theoretically, you could go on longer rampages. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Or you hook up with the Klingons. They seem like fun.
Yeah, they'd be friends.
Hey, speaking of Klingons.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how every new motherfucker on this space station tries to take Odo's job?
Yeah, no kidding.
Every fucking time. Worf. Keep your nose out of it. Odo has his reasons.
But this time I liked that they did this B plot because it does two things. It does two things, right? It highlights that Worf used to be a cop, and he's very much still of that mindset, and then it's also showing us how his new job is different, and I think it does, and I think it helps because I think when you have Worf join the cast, your initial thought as a viewer is, okay, well, he and Odo are kind of, they kind of have the same job.
Yeah, like he and Tasha kind of had the same job.
Yeah, and it didn't work. They had to get rid of one of them, really. Or, I feel like if they hadn't have killed off Tasha, they would have had to give Worf a different job to do. Right. Anyway.
So what is Worf's job right now? Because I think I'm still unclear on what his role is.
They say that he's the strategic
operations.
Strategic operations.
Responsible for helping coordinate this sector's response to the Klingon threat.
Yeah.
So basically,
vague as fuck.
Basically, he's just a tactical officer now, no security part involved.
But not like I don't think not even tactical though. Like I don't think he's the guy launching.
No, that's true.
Photons. I think he's the guy that's like planning where to position ships.
Yeah, he's reading a lot of reports these days and writing a lot of reports.
That doesn't seem very Worf. It sounds like he would hate this job.
That's boring as fuck.
Why did he come back?
Well, I think he also is expecting that he might get some battle.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Be away from Alexander. That's always great.
That's always
the farther
a positive.
away you can get from that kid, the better.
Definitely.
Be racist to Quark whenever he wants.
True.
Yeah, I did read that never in the series does Worf call Quark by name. He only refers to him as the Ferengi bartender. In
the whole series or in this episode?
I read that starting with this is what he refers to Quark as. I don't know, like, there might be instances, we'll have to see as we go forward, but they made a choice, like, this is what Worf is going to call Quark. And
I
I
wonder
feel
if
like that's
it's-
really a weird choice because it makes Worf like a little bit, I don't know, he's not seeing Quark as an individual.
I mean, is he...
Ugh.
I
don't
guess
like
the
that
question
at all.
is he racist towards Ferengis or is he contemptuous towards Quark?
Why
'Cause,
not both?
I
Well,
mean,
I
it
was
could
gonna
be
say
both.
it's definitely the latter because
I mean, I
we,
guess-
we already know, like, Worf is an established racist. Like, he refused to give blood to save...
The Romulan.
The Romulan.
The
guy.
Romulan.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I
So, like,
forgot
he's-
all about that.
He is, like... That is a character trait of Worf that has been well known for a long time.
God damn it, we don't have room on this space station for two flagrant racists.
Well, I think we'll have to see, and I don't remember how much, if any, we get. We'd have to see his interactions with Rom and Nog to see if it's sort of a unique to Quark thing or if it's a Ferengi issue.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's something I want to keep an eye out for because, seeing Worf, finding his place on this station, which is going to be very different from his place in the previous series, obviously, but also his relationships with everyone are going to be entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he already doesn't seem to, like, see Odo as a peer, really.
Yeah, well, that's all. These Starfleet people always doubt Odo when they first come in, like Caitlin said.
Yeah.
It's like, they're kind of douchey.
Yeah, but I think he'll have a little more respect for him after this incident.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I will say, I actually weirdly could sort of relate, though, because I remember when I first got promoted at my job, like, the new people, the replacements, they'd ask for help, and I'd have to, like, keep myself from just doing it for them. I was like, I got my own shit to do here. Like, they wouldn't ask me to do it for, they just ask for a bit of help, and I'd go, oh, yeah, this one, and then I'll write the email. It's, like,
It's hard to let go
stop.
of something you used to have ownership of. I think
Yeah.
that's natural, but
Like, so that admittedly was kind of funny, because it was a very real feeling thing.
Yeah, I keep watching this and feeling like, what was the episode where if someone had just told somebody else the plan, something wouldn't have gone horribly awry?
Oh, gosh, so many
All the
times.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. And you
But
keep
yeah.
wondering, like, why Odo doesn't just tell Worf this, his actual plan. But that's not Odo's job to tell Worf any of his plan.
It's
Yeah.
also not Odo's style.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, the new guy doesn't trust him. He doesn't quite trust the new guy,
Yeah. I mean, the problem obviously could have been avoided if, and I feel like Odo should have realized that, like, maybe I should just tell Worf, because he's going to keep fucking the shit up if I don't tell him.
yeah, but we know that Odo really doesn't react well to Starfleet fuckfaces questioning his job and or getting involved in it.
Oh, yeah, no,
Well,
exactly. That's why I say it's not really his style.
When he also admitted he was kind of using Worf's own investigation as part of the thing, He's like, it'd be more convincing. Like, he probably realized that because Worf is like a bull in a china shop, his stuff would be more obvious, and that's maybe what would have the guy looking over his shoulder while Odo could be all, I'm a bag!
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Was Quark in on it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I read that he was. I wouldn't have really noticed. Maybe there was a line I missed that explains that Quark was in on it, but I did read in my book that Quark and Odo had put this together.
That hadn't occurred to me, but it does make sense. Like, once Jake said it, I was like, oh yeah, because, like, otherwise Quark would have been in deep shit for buying it.
Right, yeah.
And he does try to sneak off with it. Like,
Of
he does
course
try
he does,
to... And
which is
Odo's
right.
like, Quark.
Quark!
So yeah, they had... the episode did not make it clear they were a team
In
on this
cahoots.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty sure of it just because, I think the line that made me think of it was when Quark was like, so can I get back to running my business, please? Can you get the fuck out of here? So I, like...
Oh, I missed that.
Like
that
he
might have
knew
helped.
that there was going to be this thing, and, he was kind of reluctant. Probably Odo blackmailed him into,
Yeah.
going along with this thing.
I wonder what it is about these crystals that make, like, are they a drug? Are they, like, easily weaponized?
Also, oh, man, did they fuck up? Because the bag was supposed to have latinum in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it even, like, when... At one point it was, like, put down or dropped and it made, like, a clink sound.
But when Odo melted, was there any latinum on the table?
He absorbed it into himself just to fuck with Quark.
Yeah, Quark's like,
Maybe.
wait, where's my fucking latinum?
It's in his pocket.
Subspace!
Subspace, where Sisko was last episode.
Sisko comes
He's
back.
just sitting there and suddenly he gets hit in the head with latinum. He's like, oh, what the fuck? Where is this?
So, like, either the bag didn't have latinum in it at all, and it was just Odo pretending to be latinum, But then if the guy took out the latinum to look at it or inspect it, it would have turned into goo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
as soon as it's separated from the bag.
It was full of latinum, and Odo just ate it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Oh, you want your latinum back? And then he just does like, I don't know, he just like pulls it out of his mouth one piece at a time just to screw with Quark.
Like a magician's trick.
Yeah, he's like, I know I don't actually have a digestive system, but you're still kind of grossed out by this anyway.
Hey, Quark, what's that behind your ear?
Anything can fit back there. Those ears are so big. Also, in the Worf side of things, we get a good glimpse of Sisko's clock.
Yes!
Yeah, he's playing
still
with his
playing
clock.
with clocks.
I was happy to see it. It's such a great
Me
clock.
too. It is. I fucking love that.
Yeah, at first I almost didn't recognize it because it was from the side view.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, but I was like, because you couldn't see the rings very well in the initial shot. But.
Yeah, still good. So he's still tinkering with it.
Yeah, I had actually had a note to ask if this was the clock or a new clock or what was this thing.
Well, after watching Jake die last episode, he needed something to set his mind to.
Seriously.
Either that or he's still possessed by aliens.
Well, that's just
that would explain.
Sisko.
Yeah.
That's why he acts so weird. One of my notes, Miles wishes Keiko was a man, and I wish this conversation wasn't happening.
Yeah. I did like Julian making up an out for his friend, though. That was pretty funny.
What was the out?
No, you want your workshop in the bedroom because you associated with her. So intimate. You're not trying to live like a bachelor, you're trying to be closer to her when she's not there.
Yeah, I disagreed with all of that.
You want to fuck your workbench.
Seriously,
but really, why would you have a workbench in your bedroom?
Yeah.
He's been living that bachelor life for a while.
I mean, the thing is,
She's
though,
been
he's
away
got
for so long.
giant quarters. Why didn't he just turn? What's his daughter's name? Niles.
Molly?
Niles!
Molly. That's right.
Miles and Niles O'Brien.
Yep.
No.
Molly. Why doesn't he turn Molly's bedroom into his workshop?
Maybe she could marry Ryan Stiles and then she'd be Niles Stiles.
Or maybe what he could do is convert that shuttle bay or that cargo bay that Sisko tried to give him into his workshop. You know, when
that was going to become an arboretum.
Yeah, and that ungrateful Keiko was like, nah.
No, she didn't say no. It was Julian who pointed out why it was a bad idea.
That's true.
He was like, you're asking her to turn her career into a hobby. See, Julian's there for him.
That's true, he is.
Yeah, but it's not unusual for a guy to try to play to his crush's problems in his relationship to try to sneak in there. Like, he's acting like his friend and confidant, but he's actually just being the good friend so that when Keiko and Miles break up, he's the first person that O'Brien comes crying to.
He's trying the the friend zone thing.
They are just friends. He is not cheating on Garrick.
Maybe it's not cheating. They could have an open relationship. We don't know.
Yeah, come on. It's the future.
That's true.
With it. I don't know. So, obviously, aside from the whole ethical situation with the Jem'Hadar and the conflict between Miles and O'Brien, I mean, Miles and...
Niles.
He actually is a little bit Nilesy, isn't he? He's got that accent.
He's secretly lusting after his father's British care aide.
There you go.
Julian?
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, I think the bigger issue, or not the bigger issue, but the more important issue that was established here is the chain of command, right?
Yeah.
And how, we never
there are
really
4
see
lights.
we never really see people in Star Trek pull rank on each other like that.
Not often, no.
But when we do, it's kind of jarring because you're like, well, but they're friends and they work together, and we always see Starfleet people work together to solve their problems. They don't fight and pull rank, and
especially not the doctors.
Threaten with court martial.
Like, you feel like with the doctors, they almost just have a rank, so they feel special.
Well, he does feel special.
Like, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because they have that special, like, they don't really need the rank because it's their title that's more important. They have that special, I'm the doctor, I can pull you off duty thing.
Duty.
True.
But yeah, so it is, you're right, it's weird in general, but it's doubly weird when it's one of the doctors being like, I outrank you, and it's like, I mean, technically, but...
I mean, he still came up through Starfleet in all this stuff. He still went through the academy, and
Yeah, it's still just, it's always weird.
they probably still have all the basic training that they give you.
Oh, totally. It just, it to me, it always feels like their rank is secondary to their position.
I mean,
with doctors.
we've seen Bev take control of the Enterprise before.
Yeah, she's a commander.
That's right. There's a
Fly it into a sun, like
yes.
you do.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, if fucking Deanna can
Crash onto a
become
planet? Yes.
Can get night shift duty.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's something Julian's really looking for.
No, but as you know, he's a lieutenant
Yes.
nominally, so
Yeah. I mean, he does definitely on paper outrank O'Brien.
yeah.
And O'Brien ultimately resorting to the Kira method.
Which is?
Well, I when he blew up Julian's workbench, I thought at the time Kira blew up that guy's kiln.
Oh, his kiln.
Oh yeah,
I
now
mean,
you have to
O'Brien
leave.
kind of did, because he also sabotaged the transporter thingamabob so that he could escape.
Then he went
that
into
was
the
interesting.
woods like he was in Home Alone and rigged up a trap.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's one thing I forgot. It was a clever trap, but then the Foley was a bit
dumb-looking trap.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like,
but it worked.
He placed the tricorder like it was gonna explode or something, and that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But no, just a branch comes and swings out and knocks the guy out.
And then it had like comedy Foley thunk.
Oh no!
Like they might as well have had the Jem'Hadar do the fucking Wilhelm scream when he went down.
Oh my god, I wish they would have.
I wonder why he didn't just. So he went back to get Julian at the workshop. I wonder why he didn't just transport him onto the runabout.
Maybe his little move there broke the transporter. It was like a one-use thing.
No, but he used the transporter himself to escape.
That's what I mean, but maybe that, like, whatever he did, like, there was enough for one go, but then he was going to shut down the power system, or, I don't know.
Maybe.
They only have transporters when it doesn't make the plot too convenient, or something. I don't know.
So the Jem'Hadar would be so easy to fuck up. Or not even fuck up. It would be so easy to make the Jem'Hadar just another soldiery thing and not make it so you don't give a shit about them.
Soldiery thing.
Like the Borg. No one aside from Hugh, no one gives a shit about any of the Borgs.
Okay, so like a faceless enemy.
Yeah, faceless enemy.
Okay.
Yeah, they could easily have been the stormtroopers of Star
Yeah,
Trek.
but they definitely go out of their way on this show to humanize the Jem'Hadar.
Well, I think it helps that, so far we've had a few direct conflicts, but then early on we had the Abandoned.
Mhm.
And now, again, we've seen them a bit here and there in the field, but now, again, we get a good, chunky episode like this where we meet, I've forgotten his name, the commander.
It's in the chat.
Garanagar.
Hold on.
But they also make it so...
Oh, God. That's
we're
how it's
also
spelled?
shown that, they have a lot of knowledge. They're briefed on what Starfleet rank insignia represent.
Yeah, and color.
What the color of the uniforms mean.
And there was that early episode where one was like, man, I really want to meet a Klingon.
Yeah.
Like,
So
they're
serious soldiers.
Yeah.
Really want to see a cat.
I've heard they're assholes. They seem nice.
They seem to also know a lot about, even just these guys seem to know a lot about the personnel on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just know Odo's name. Maybe
I don't know. I
just
feel
especially
like
important.
we've established that the changelings are everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a ton of intel that is just being delivered amongst the entire Dominion of here's all the stuff we know, which is literally everything, because we're everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I just wouldn't expect, most just, field soldiers necessarily to be up on that. But I guess he's not, because he's, the leader of a battalion.
Well, but also that's maybe part of what makes the Dominion so effective, is they make sure that their frontline people know a lot of this stuff. On the one hand, yes, they are unfortunately enslaved, but on the other hand, they have a huge knowledge base.
That's fair.
Any other notes on our Hippocratic Oath? Which, again, as I mentioned earlier, was directed by Rene Aubergenois.
Just that I'm as pleased by Julian's progress as I am disappointed by the Chief.
Mm-hmm.
And that I look forward to getting past this. I learned a valuable lesson today, Worf. seeing him as like part of the cast and not just like sticking out like a sore thumb.
Well, he
really hasn't well integrated yet.
He's still so new. It's like, what, his third episode?
Though actually, speaking of that...
Was he even in The Visitor?
I think he was seen
very
at the memorial.
briefly.
Okay.
Saying, like, you really should go, Jake.
Yeah, you're right. It would be prudent of you.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't feeling very prudent that day.
That's right. That's right.
The only other thing I thought was interesting was when Kira, like, joins him at the table for, like, no reason. And I kind of wondered if... I don't know. Because I feel like Jadzia was definitely being a little boy crazy about him. Was this their attempt to make Kira a little boy crazy as well? Or, like, what do we think the deal was there?
They probably just wanted to show off the new costume.
Sounds right.
Well, she's, trying to get
Look at how approachable I am now. I'm going to go befriend the new kid in class.
Hey, maybe it's like we were saying earlier. She's fascinated because she feels like her culture is compatible with Klingon culture, and they want to compare notes.
And she's heard about those two dicks.
I mean, we could also. I mean, it's okay for a woman to have a conversation with a man. And
I know.
Be about boys.
No, it definitely is. But it also seemed like a weird time where he was like obviously busy doing something. You know what I mean? Like maybe she knew more about what was going on with Odo, and so she wanted to. I don't know. I can make up all kinds of reasons. And you're right, of course they could just be friendly, but it did seem like he was obviously working, she was obviously intruding.
Yeah, normally it does feel like she'd be less like...
Yeah, she has more tact than this.
Yeah, you're right. It is a little strange.
I like to assume that all three of them were investigating Quark in that moment.
Yeah.
She does hate Quark.
Anyway, I think that's probably it for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, well, if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, A Star to Steer Her By is available where all fine podcasts are sold. You can find us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook.com by searching for A Star to Steer Her By. You can find us on Twitter and Tumblr as @SSHB Podcast, or you can visit sshbpodcast.com. It's just a link at the moment to our Tumblr page, but at some point that might not be true, so, check it out. Maybe we'll all be surprised. Next week, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to discuss 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Weird.
Those episodes are Indiscretion and Rejoined. Can't wait to see what those are about.
Oh, no. Is Rejoined a Dax episode?
Sounds like it.
It is.
Is it going to be that she and Curzon are rejoined?
We'll see next week.
No, there is...
don't spoil it, Jake.
Don't want to spoil it.
Boys! All right.
As Linda.
Usual. All right. I have been Caitlin.
I have been Jake.
This has been Chris.
This is always Ames.
See you next week. I've got no new rules of acquisition. Sorry. Bye.
Nobody sponsors us anymore after that MyPillow incident.
Ooh, we can get those butt pillow people to sponsor us.
God, what was it called?
I do not remember, but I keep getting the ad on Facebook.
Was it like buttress or something?
Yes. It is a pillow shaped like a shapely lady's tuchus.
Why would you sit on that?
It could also be a shapely man's tuchus.
Oh, what's interesting, though, is that it's popping up in your Facebook ads, which means that something in the algorithm suggested that you would like that.
I mean, I like a nice tuchus, but I'm not some kind of creepy weirdo that needs to sleep on one. And Caitlin, to your question, that technically could be true, but I went to the website being like, this can't be real. And no, it's real, and it is definitely supposed to be a lady's bum, because it is the most, heteronormative advertisement site ever. You can also buy a thong for it if you'd like.
I mean, if you want to buy a fake ass to fuck, they make those. You can just buy.
Oh no, there's no hole.
Fake ass.
It is strictly for laying on.
I think the idea. Okay, I'm going to speculate here, in that the
God,
idea is
we're
that
never going to talk Star
this
Trek
is a product
week.
for people that are too embarrassed to buy the fake ass to fuck. So they're going to buy this pillow, and then they're going to put a hole in it and fuck it.
Maybe.
They might even put their fleshlight into the hole.
God, no. This is a good week of episodes. Can we actually talk Star Trek and not fill this episode with fucking garbage?
We'll start it over. Hello and welcome to A Star to Steer Her By, brought to you by the Ass Pillow and the Fleshlight, a match made in heaven.
God damn it.